Hi, good evening, friends. It is my absolute pleasure to welcome each one of you to yet another personal storytelling session of Across and Beyond the Arabian Sea. Can't tell you how delighted I am to see so many of you joining online to be a part of this story experience. As many of us are aware, personal stories, sharing, and listening can help us bond, connect beyond borders, irrespective of our caste, creed, age, etc. And this sharing and listening can also enable us to relieve our stress and monotony of our daily lives and to bring in that spark and liveliness yet again. Also, it can aid us in introspecting and accepting parts and pieces of our own lives, which can immensely help us in our growth as individuals. So that's what we do here, sharing our personal narratives on a given theme. So as always, we have a theme for today's stories, and our theme today is that incredible journey. And we have 4 eloquent storytellers sharing their personal tales on this beautiful theme. Now, incredible journeys. We all travel. We take trips for pleasure, we meet people, or for some specific purposes. Irrespective of the purpose of our journey or trip, each time we come back a little different. Sometimes we meet someone, sometimes we gain an insight or two, we learn something, we explore. Sometimes we even lose something within us. So each journey is significant for that matter. When I thought of this theme, incredible journey, there's this one trip that came to my mind. And it was that trip which I took with my friends during the final year of my undergraduation so many years back. Now, I studied in an all-women's college in central Kerala, and we were a batch of 30 girls in our BSc physics batch. Let me tell you, that final year trip was something that we all looked forward so eagerly. Rather, that was the only thing some of us looked forward throughout our course. Reasons are many. Now, physics is not much of a fun subject. So amidst our grueling lectures and labs, not to mention the sarcastic comments, remarks, or scoldings some of us received from our scholarly professors, this trip was the only thing that kept us going ahead. Now, just like my friends, I grew up in a small town without much exposure to the outside world, outside my little comfortable bubble. And I was happy doing what I was doing. Home, friends, college. I never seriously thought about a career that I would end up in or a place I would be eventually settling in. I never thought about all of that. I was literally going with the flow. And I thought eventually things will work out and I will end up in some career somewhere. I was contented. Our only mode of entertainment those days was this weekly Hindi movies and the Chitrahar program shown by Doordarshan, the only entertainment channel for us those days. And those movies and those song sequences was my peep to an outside fancy world. And I adored those Hindi movie stars. So we tried to include a movie along with our final year college trip, which for some reason our class teacher, Miss IC, was not keen at all. She said there is no need of movie and all during your final year college trip. That was that. Finally, we started off our trip with much fun and frolic to our first destination, Ooty, which proceeded to Mysore and then to Bangalore. I remember the fun we had during that trip, clicking away pictures in our Kodak cameras, enjoying the sights. The sights were stunning, of course. But more than that, we were enjoying each other's company and we got to know each other in ways that we couldn't even imagine. We were amicably chatting with our teachers, which was unthinkable back in our campus. And I remember those final 2 days of our trip in the gorgeous garden city of Bangalore. That's when Miss Icy decided to treat us with a movie. She took us to this open air theater, which I forgot the name, to watch the iconic Hindi movie Anand that starred mega stars Rajesh Khanna and Amitabh Bachchan. Oh, I remember the euphoria we had watching that movie with our eyes wide open and our hearts literally singing. That whole experience of exploring that majestic city and watching that movie in an open air setting without a roof or walls. That whole experience, it all felt surreal to me. It was a world I felt out of my reach, out of my known, a world that is advanced, different, and much more promising. It opened my eyes to a world which was not only technically advanced, but urban and fascinating. I told myself, Shandy, if you study hard, you can also end up in a city like this for a career, maybe one day. It actually, in a way, that trip opened my eyes and gave wings to my aspirations and dreams, invoked a feeling of that limitless possibilities which existed elsewhere, which I did not even know. So that movie, Anand, and that trip with my friends remains so special to me that in fact enabled me to dream big and enhanced that awareness of those endless possibilities that existed elsewhere. Though it was a little late, I started working hard on my studies post that trip. With that, friends, let's start our session today. So the format of the session is, as always, we have 4 storytellers. The timing for each story is 8 to 10 minutes. And after all 4 stories are over, we have a discussion session of 15 to 20 minutes where the listeners, our dear listeners, are most welcome to share their thoughts and comments. And also, please feel free to share your thoughts in the comment box, in the chat box as well. So let's start without any further ado. Our first storyteller for today is Shilpa Mehta, who's joining us from Jaipur. Now, let me introduce her. Shilpa is an educator, author, freelance editor and translator by profession, and a self-motivated, passionate storyteller by choice. She has authored academic books for children. Her woven tales have found their way in various anthologies, print and e-magazines. She's been a featured storyteller at various storytelling festivals and story swap programs. She is a story enthusiast and tell stories through YouTube channel Story Rack. Today, she is sharing her personal story titled Kashmir Files. Friends, help me welcome Shilpa with a round of applause. Over to you, Shilpa.
Thank you. Thank you, Shanti, and hello, everyone. I think a trip to Kashmir must be on the bucket list of many of you, just like me. It was there for a long time, but somehow Kashmir kept eluding me, mainly due to terror and political instability. Strange that a place as beautiful and well known as the heaven on earth should be stricken by terror and bloodshed. Finally, stars favored me, and my long drawn plans could finally see the light of the day. It was in the month of March 6 years ago that we finally decided to take the plunge. Our plans were materialized as we, along with two of our family friends, packed our bags to visit this Switzerland of the East. We reached Delhi from Jaipur and we were waiting at the IGI airport lounge for the flight to Srinagar. It was then that the TV headlines, terrorist attack in Jammu and Kashmir, caught our eyes. My heart sank. Was our plan going to fizzle out even before it took off? One family from our group decided there and then to back out. They somehow managed to get back their luggage and headed back home. We too were in a dilemma now. My dream to visit Kashmir seemed to doom. Is Kashmir really worth risking our life? Deep down my heart, there's never another chance. Jao, Kashmir mein bani hai. As if sensing our quandary, one of the Kashmiri students sitting near came up and gently said, "Ma'am, I understand your predicament as you are watching the news, but I humbly request you to go ahead with your plan. Do not be afraid to visit our Kashmir. In case you face any problem, you are most welcome to come to our place and stay with my family." Looking at my expression, he knew I was still apprehensive. So he went to a lady from Kashmir who was sitting nearby with her family, and he requested her to speak with me. She also tried to convince us to go ahead with our plan. Now, that was so unexpected. Had I been elsewhere, I would have been alarmed at people coming up to me and reassuring me of the conditions in their hometown and inviting me to their place in case of any trouble. But I don't know why. Here, I was somehow touched by this gesture. So, what did we do? Any guesses? Yes, the brave heart that we are, we decided to take the plunge and headed straight for our destination. The flight from Delhi to Kashmir was a mix of emotions of thrill, adventure, and of course, full of fear. But the moment we landed in Srinagar, we felt all our fears dissipating in the beauty of the place. Outside the airport, Khan Sahab, who was supposed to be with us for the next 5 days, was waiting for us with his tempo traveler. We headed straight for Nagin Lake, where we were supposed to stay at the houseboat. On our way, we were absorbing the beauty around us. When we reached there, we were greeted with light showers. The enhanced beauty of our surroundings due to this downpour was perhaps God's signal of reaffirming us of our decision to move ahead with our plans. So we went around the lake so that we do not miss out even a single moment of splendor, that is Kashmir. On returning, a lavish dinner served in beautiful crockery awaited us. Our stomachs grumbled and we could wait no longer to lay our hands on the feast that lay before us. Our scrumptious dinner was followed by lazing around in the houseboat. Just as we were about to call it off a day, the manager of our houseboat came to us and said, "Sir," rather, he informed us about an impending curfew that was to be imposed due to the terror attack. He insisted that he did not want to frighten us, but he was just merely cautioning us to leave early in the morning at around 4 o'clock instead of 8 o'clock that we had intended. Now, as you can see, after a long, tiring day, all we wanted was a good night's sleep in the luxurious houseboat in the serene lake. Instead, we were wide awake with fear, tension, and apprehension. Well, we were ready to leave at 4 o'clock in the morning when the manager came to me and handed me a small packet of sandwiches, saying, "Ma'am, please keep this for the kids." This small act of consideration overwhelmed us. His expression said it all. He was feeling guilty that that was all he was able to do for his guests who had come there for the first time. What he didn't know perhaps was that he had already done so much. And thank you was too small a word for it. Now, we all went in a small boat with our luggage in the dark, with slight drizzle aggravating our already somber mood. As we crossed the lake to reach the other end, we saw Khan Sahab right there waiting for us with his tempo traveler. His face was showing something else. Well, all of us sat inside the tempo traveler, windows curtain drawn, praying fervently for a safe journey to Gulmarg. I could feel the palpitation in my heart throughout the journey. We reached Gulmarg, and the moment we got down, what did we see? The white snow surrounding us, and the child inside us got awoke. We all went crazy, throwing snowballs at each other and enjoying and running to the hotel up there. After breakfasting, we went for gondola ride and skiing in the snow paradise. We could not take our eyes off the breathtaking view. So, you see, due to this situation, or rather the tense situation, every time our journey from one place to another started at around 4 in the morning, full of anxiety and fear, and of course, prayers. And each time we found this anxiety and fear to vanish the moment we reached our destination. For the sheer beauty of the place made us forget our worries. And every morning we came out of our hotel, all set to enjoy and seize each day. A Bollywood buff that I am, who has music running through my veins, I was transported to a different world every now and then, where I saw Bobby Deol and Amrita Singh in the now famous Betab Valley in Pahalgam, Rishi Kapoor and Dimple Kapadia in the Bobby Hut, Amitabh Bachchan and Rekha romancing in the beautiful backdrop of Kashmir, Rajesh Khanna and Mumtaz dancing to the tunes of Jai Jai Shiv Shankar on the hilltop at Shankaracharya Temple, and while relishing the quintessential kava on a shikara ride in the Dal Lake. Yes, none other than Shammi Kapoor wooing the beautiful Kashmir ki Kali Sharmila Tagore. So the list is endless. Neither the imagination left my mind, nor did the smile left my face. So 6 days of our adventurous trip to Kashmir had come to an end, and Khan Sahab came to drop us at the airport. Here, after we got down, with folded hands, he stood there and then politely apologized for any inconvenience we might have faced during our stay. We all were speechless. If you are there with me throughout this journey to Kashmir, which is mired in terrorism, you could have probably felt the undercurrent of anxiety, fear, and stress throughout our journey. But Khan Sahab had been there with us like an armor, taking full responsibility of our safety. And yet here he was, this humble soul, apologizing to us for any inconvenience caused. His next words were what edged him and our trip as a beautiful, beautiful memory that I still cherish till date. He said to my husband, "Sir, please inform me once you reach home safely." This was a bond we had developed in those 6 days that made him feel so close to our hearts that he prayed for our safe journey and he wanted to know when we reached home. We were all left misty eyed. He further added that we should go and share our experience about Kashmir with all our friends and encourage them to visit here. Kashmir and its people want the golden days back. He said, it was then that I realized that no tourism advertisement could match the feeling of what he had just said right from his heart. He had made me believe in the real essence of Atiti Devo Bhavo in today's times. The love for one's state, humanity, compassion, and warmth is what I noticed about Kashmiris right from Delhi airport to Kashmir. And these were a few life lessons that I learned about almost 1,000 kilometers away from my home. Gar barue firdaus zamiyasto, hamiyas, hamiyas, hamiyas. Means if there is heaven on earth, it is here, here, and right here. I got my answer, why? And I came back with truckloads of memories and life's lessons from this journey. And now I would like to leave you in the sprawling green meadows, merging in the surrounding foothills, crystal clear river water, which is gushing over a rocking bed, and snow-capped mountains. So enjoy and thank you.
Thank you so much, Shilpa, for that indeed incredible journey, the story of that. A heartwarming story of hospitality, generosity, and pure humanity of people. And your words and expressions brought to life those, I was with you, traveling with you. It felt so when you were describing passionately about their hospitality, how Khan Saab's gesture left you speechless.
Yes.
This entire experience left me speechless. And thank you so much for sharing this tale with us, Shilpa. Thank you so much. I hope this story reaches thousands of people more. People need to listen to this story.
Yes. I would just like to add, I had shared this 2 years back, like after coming back from Kashmir. So one of my friends, it was last year in March 2001, when the international tourism was still not open, but the tourism started in our country. So he wanted to go to Kashmir in March. And he said, he called me up that it is because of people like you, तुम्हारे जैसे जो tourist हैं, उनकी दुआओं के कारण Kashmir was booked till June, fully booked till June. So I think
so beautiful.
we should all,
Yes, we
so
all.
that's why I always make it a point to share it so that
definitely
we visit that beautiful place.
Amazing story. Please. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Moving on. Our next storyteller for today is a retired cadre, Sugunakar Pakala, who is joining us from Doha. Let me introduce him. He hails from Visakhapatnam, India, and had distinguished himself with 21 years of commission service in the Indian Navy that had a right mix of assignments. As additional GM at Hindustan Shipyard Limited, headed the commercial division and associated with submarine-related projects. Currently, he is the director at Dara Global Technologies and Consultancy Services. An avid Toastmaster, intends to make good tidings amongst prolific speakers in Qatar and beyond. Friends, today, Sugunakar is going to share his personal story titled Ocean, a Mystic. Help me welcome Sugunakar with a round of applause. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, DTM Shanti Rose, for that particular intro. Yes. How many of us here present have really understood or recollect Vanessa Williams? He's got the looks. Sometime in the 1980s. Yeah. Probably this was something that really when I looked at the advertisement, said, join the Navy and see the world. Probably this is what I got carried away. And then with the Vanessa Williams song that he's got the looks, I thought it was a fantastic combination. And I had it all in me. And that was never in self-doubt, honestly. And then you had the Top Gun, Maverick doing the tricks, and then the Navy was all, and the sea had its own calling. For an 18-year-old, you had nothing much to look, then join the Navy and see the world. I waited with bated breath for the next 16 years as to when I leave the shores of India. I thought probably I was mistaken with that particular advertisement, which forbore the fact that I would join the Navy and see something. But destiny is always different, isn't it? When it comes, it gives you in absolute abundance. And that Navy did. I was a part of the crew of the first INS Tarangani, a sail training ship, which did circumnavigate the globe in 2003, 2004. One would wonder why. Even today, Tarangani is currently in the United Kingdom, marking the 75th year of our independence. And then there she is on Lokian 22, and she will be at sea till November this year, 7 months. But not many would nonchalantly give that particular thing a little cue, but you'll certainly remember the first one which we did. And I, for one, felt extremely grateful for being selected on that particular trip and that crew. Few would wonder why people have to circumnavigate the globe on a sail training ship today. There are plenty who have done that earlier. Somebody would rather recall Magellan, or for that matter, Sir Francis Drake, who did that some 500 years ago. But there is something more that comes to what adventure is all about. And more important than anything, getting to that self-belief as a rejoinder for us to gain that experience. Well, in my own little words, I would rather state it to be, history would remain a replete of resolute testament to learn and appreciate the forbearance in life and evolve as a true human being. And that's where probably I'll start my journey now. When it comes in abundance, it comes in plenty. 14 countries, 17 ports, 11,000 miles across 2 oceans. 10 minutes is too little a time to cover all of it. But then I will take certain aspects of things where probably you would appreciate the life within and the life outside. People can romanticize a ship going by, or probably Maverick here or two, but there's something more that goes to put the machine there and the man behind. A real testament to the engineers of the world who ensure that happen. And that's a tale that not many would speak, not certainly would find the romantic essence, which I would rather bring forth today. Not much from the Indians you will find who have done that to the west of the Americas. Sailing through the Pacific Oceans, being there at the Galapagos Islands, moving on to Micronesia, Polynesia, and Marquesian Islands, traversing to Fiji, and then coming across to Australia, to Indonesia, Singapore, Colombo, Sri Lanka, and back to India. That was the route probably Tarangini did in those 7 odd months. But I will talk the tale where probably most Indians have not found their place in the Pacific. The Galapagos happened to be the first stop after leaving Panama. The first time ever any Indian ship has ever set foot there into those waters. Somebody who would have known what is Galapagos would rather do. Probably Charles Darwin postulated this theory of natural selection there, and you did have the research center. Probably it gave me an idea that whatever little did I read or study in school, I was seeing it firsthand. Probably the place where Charles Darwin really wrote his theory of natural selection. That apart, when you go with cadets and you are there, you need to inculcate a thing of adventure. Boy, did we do. Just for a moment, all of you pause to think, have you ever gone up to see a crater of a live volcano? Just for a second. Even the thought could be scary, isn't it? Yeah, we did trek. 40 of us on horseback, on foot. There she was, Sagir Negera, which was last erupted in 1988. And there you see the 12-kilometer crater. Hope with the heart that it will not going to erupt at that moment in time. But the feeling is really, really distinct. Even as I'm speaking to you today, I'm reliving back my life some 19 years ago. To give that human element that, yes, there's always a reason for us to push a little ahead, reach there, and more important than not, get the best of it. The travel next probably was 25 days before we saw landmass ever again. 25 days, 70 bodies, and with your freshwater generators, or what you call them as the reverse osmosis plants, going duff. 5 tons of water to survive, 70 people, 25 days. You are at a crossroads there. Where probably you will learn that anything you attempt will only ensure your survival. Those 48 hours that I, Murugan, Rajender worked together to get those things going, I can still feel right through my spine now as I speak. 48 hours of work. We got those things going with no support and nobody to help you and none to handhold. Human ingenuity is at its best when you seek help from within and have the belief system that you can do. And what more, you can always make good with whatever is there in existence. 48 hours and we got that going. And believe you me, that has always given me a chance today, wherever and whenever I have been left at a crossroad, that I'm more than determined that I can make it. We saved 70 of our lives and we are there here to tell another tale, to live another day. The other thing which probably was really marked toward human resilience was when we got to Apia, ravaged with time, with a cyclone Heta. They were indeed a small nation ravaged, but they never gave the belief that we were not welcome there. Despite the fact that food was in short supply, but they ensured that we were kept in good humor. Despite the pain that their houses were down, they were always there to extend that help. And if I were to go through that life of our life in Apia in Western Samoa, I think it gave me a little hope when I personally went through Cyclone Hudhud in 2014 that ravaged Visakhapatnam and the east coast of India. The belief that yes, we can survive this, have that smile and live again and make good whatever we have lost. I think I've learned from the psalm once. Well, ladies and gentlemen, my time is short. What is it that you learn in such kind of passages? Is that you believe that you can do with whatever brittle you can. I'm not talking of minimalization. I'm certainly saying have the respect to what you have and make the most of it. The true human element is what can be seen, rather left unspoken then. Hardly we have exchanged many words, but the fact of the matter remained that we had a task to do and live to the task that we had at hand. Never to lose that schedule the country has given us, despite the fact that we had many other issues that probably warranted much more support otherwise. In short, when you get to this stage, when you come back to the country after 7 long months, what best can you have with the President of India coming and giving you a pat on your back? More than anything, Dr. Kalam coming over and giving you his wings of fire with his autographed, self-autographed, rather autographed one. And I get an opportunity to share my experience as the only engineer on board and surviving to tell a tale to him for the next 15 odd minutes. Well, I think when I look back at those 7 months and the little things that I've said, we really gained better of being a true ambassador for the country, representing in those parts. They have never known an Indian before. They probably will never see many. They're coming there. But the fact of the matter remained. We let live that little imprint, what Indians are all about, and what probably we can partake and help them in the same way they walked the distance, despite the fact that they had their homes down. This is a real minuscule part of this journey, incredible journey that I've been, and I owe it to the Navy for giving me that opportunity. Before I go, I shall really share a few glimpses of 19 years of a journey that I spent 19 years ago, which probably would see I lose a day when I cross the international date line, which is indeed a separate story to talk about. Not many have ever lost a day, I'm sure, but I did. And going through those places and living through where indeed, I think, is an experience of a lifetime. And finally, my moments with Dr. Kalam. 15 minutes of his time, I think I owe it and cherish it for this lifetime. Back to you, DTM Shanti.
Wow. Incredible journey, Subhanagar, quite literally. You kept us all engrossed in that fascinating tale of your voyage in Tarangani. And more than that, for me, you took me to an unknown territory, which I'm not aware of, an unknown world. And you described that story, narrated that story of human resilience, perseverance, and everything, every other spirit a human being can possess. Thank you for sharing this marvelous story with us, and congratulations to you for surviving, or rather learning all that. You know, I love the way you touched the journey inward and outward through that voyage. That was indeed incredible. Thank you. Thank you, Subhanara, for sharing the story with us. Moving on, friends, our third storyteller for today is C. Mankalam Senthil, who's joining us from Coimbatore, India. Let me introduce her. Mankalam is an instrumentation engineer by education, a trainer by passion, turned into a performance professional storyteller, a story enthusiast, a TEDx speaker, a column fanatic who tells stories under the name Katha Kudiram. She's a member of Feast. She has performed in some of the Indian storytelling festivals and at the NSN and ASSD international platforms. She is one among the tellers by District Institute of Education and Training, Tamil Nadu, to introduce concepts of maths and science through stories. Friends, today she is sharing a personal story titled The Walk to the Carpentry Lab. Friends, help me welcome Mangalam with a round of applause. Over to you, Mangalam.
Good evening, namaste, good morning to all the people who've joined here from different parts. Okay, so one trip to Kashmir and one trip around the world. And now it's with great difficulty that I have to walk from my classroom to my carpentry lab. Okay, let's get started. The birds came and sat next to the window near my bed and they had begun chirping. And my friend was already tapping me to get up. I was awake, but I did not have the heart, mind, soul, or the thought of even wanting to get up from bed that day. You know why? Because it was my practical exam and it was my carpentry practical exam. With great difficulty, my friend pulled me out of the bed and I somehow got ready and I reached my classroom. From the hostel to the classroom, my friend literally pulled me, dragged me, pushed me. She did everything she could and she made me reach the classroom. But that was only midway. I had to reach the carpentry lab. So I sat in my place. Literally, I didn't want to go to that lab. So again, she kept pushing me and my feet also seemed to understand what I was thinking. My feet also did not move. And with great difficulty, she said, come, come, come. I said, okay. And I put my right foot forward. Now to lift my left foot and put it was a big task. So as my left leg was preparing to put the next foot forward, my mind raced back. I joined college. So it was my first day in engineering college. The thrill of staying away from home in the hostel, the joy of being able to wear color dress and not uniforms like in school, that was all very nice. And the icing on the cake was when I came to know within a few days after I joined college was that it was not necessary for us to pass in all the subjects before we had to go to the next semester. But in all earnestness, I started attending my classes. The first Friday of the academic year saw us all being taken to the carpentry lab. Our carpentry sir, he explained to us all the tools that were used, the smoothing tools, the holding tools, then the drilling tools, the cutting tools. He explained to us all of that. And then he showed us how the workpiece had to be first got ready before we started making the models. So by the workpiece, it means a wood piece, cuboid in shape, length, height and breadth to specifications. So I saw sir explain and I was like filled in with awe. I was like, wow, we can create things ourselves. Aha. And my mind was already racing. Once I go home, I will make a bookshelf. I will do this for my mama in the kitchen. I will do that for my papa. All that was going on in my mind. And I was brought back to reality when sir said, okay, You can all now take your pieces of wood and start doing. So I went and I picked up a nice piece of wood. I held it using the carpenter's bench vise. I took the jack plane and then I went sarak, 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 sarak. I started smoothing my piece of wood. And then I turned the piece and then that side also sarak, 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 sarak. I finished smoothing all the sides and I removed my workpiece from the bench vise and I took it to sir. I looked around, none of my other classmates had actually gone to sir. I was like, oh, I'm the first person to go show my piece. Great. I went and I showed my piece of wood to sir. And then sir checked and then he looked at me and he said, don't you have a tri-square in your place? I said, yes, sir. You know, you have to check for the perpendicularity on all sides. Two sides, they're not perpendicular. Please go do it. I said, okay, sir. Then I came back, fixed the piece back using the carpenter's bench vise. And then again, I went sarak, 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 sarak. It was actually fun. It was very liberating and it was very nice. It was very smooth also, very sharp also. I had nice fun doing it. And then I had the tri-square. I checked all the sides of the cuboid and it was all perfect, 90 degrees, all sides. Super. So this time I will get a sign in my observation note. I was damn sure, 1000%, no, 10,000% sure I will get a sign. And then I went with the piece. Sir, my piece. And then sir checked and then he looked at me and said, don't you have a ruler in your place? Like, sir, with all your smoothing, the width which should be 5 centimeters is now only 4.6 centimeters. Reject. He threw my piece and he said, repeat. Again, I took another piece of wood and then again I went sarak, 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 sarak. As I was doing sarak, 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 darr, the bell rang. And then I went off. So the following Friday, it was fitting lab, which we had to deal with metals. And the consecutive Friday, again, we came to the carpentry lab and I had drawn and written about the first joint that we were supposed to do, the butt joint. And then I was about to start doing that joint when sir came and said, hello. I said, yes, sir. You have not made your workpiece properly. Only if you make your workpiece properly, you can start doing the joints and other models. Do the workpiece. Around me, everybody were doing the butt joint. And me alone, the first piece, sarak, 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 sarak. They all finished sarak, sarak, sarak. They were all now doing tark, 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 tark with the handsaw. They had all gone for cutting. But I was still in my sarak, 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 sarak. And again he said, not perpendicular. Measurements are not proper. Reject. I felt that sir was only being very strict with me. Other places, 1 millimeter, 0.5 millimeter, he was okay with me. Only he was doing all this nitpicking. I didn't like it at all. The Friday after that, I did not go to the carpentry class. It saw me sitting in front of the summer in Bethlehem. Suresh Gopi was there, Manju Warrior was there, Mohanlal was there. And I was watching the movie. എത്രയോ ജന്മമായി നിന്നെ ഞാൻ തേടുന്നേ. So you were saying I'm searching you for so long. I said, even I am searching for a perfect piece of wood which I'm not getting. Gone. Then the Christmas halls came. Then the Pongal halls came. Then the next week I went. And then I looked. Sir didn't tell anything about the first work piece. I started with my second one, the butt joint. Sarak, 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 sarak again. Me and sir were always at loggerheads. And so after that, whenever I used to see sir coming that way, I used to turn and go this way. He's there, I used to turn and go this way. I didn't want even see his face. And the week after that, I went for Dil Se Re, ek Gandhi jo आई तू कहीं टुकड़ों में जी रही है. Yes, I thought of all the wooden shreds which I was smoothing and shelving off, and they were all टुकड़ों में living, and I was also in tukda without getting in terms with my carpentry sir. And so all that I had done was the first one making the workpiece and the second one butt joint, but that was also not approved by sir. And before I knew, the date of the carpentry practical exam was announced, the university practical exam. Now, I took my record note and I wrote all the 15 models which had to be done and which many of my classmates actually finished. They did two models per day and they had actually finished everything. And here I was only with one sarak model. So I wrote all the 15 of them. I drew, some of them my friends drew. I finished all the 15 of them were there in my record note. And I learned 10 of the diagrams alone, 10 models, diagrams alone I learned, hoping that one of them would come. And looking at it, I would do something, whether it was perfect or not, at least looking at the diagram, I can do something. And yes, by now my friend had dragged me and I was at the entrance of the carpentry lab. I went inside, the papers were all placed with the questions face down. I went and I picked up one. And I knew I was doomed. It was the 15th model, the most difficult of them, the tongue and the groove joint. Forget doing it. I didn't know to do it. That diagram I had not even drawn in my record note. I had told somebody else to draw. Even if they give me the diagram, I do not know to do it. So, and sir was standing there. All when I see him, I get all worked up inside, and the ego and the swelling rage inside a 17-year-old. I did not even look at him. I just dropped the paper on the table and I said, sir, I will come the next semester and do. And I turned. So as I turned, he said, stop. And do you think I stopped? No, I continued walking. And then he said, listen, Mangalam, after 5 or 6 months for the next semester, again you will have to come here. Again you will have to see my face. And most important, only if you pass in this lab, you will get your engineering degree. And that is when it hit me. I had to pass this at all cost. I had to see him the next semester. So I stopped, but I'd still not turned back to face him. He said, Mangalam, if I change the model and give, will you do it? So I turned back as if I was doing him a favor. I said, okay, sir, I will try. And so he gave me another joint, which was the dovetail joint. I knew the diagram, thankfully. And I went sarak, tarak, tak, I finished. Far from perfection, but I was happy it was over. And one thing I was sure, this sir was also getting irritated seeing my face. So somehow I will pass this semester. That much I was sure. Thankfully, my Viva went well. And sir said, since you got your model changed, 20 marks are being deducted. I said, okay, fine. Kuch bhi kar do, but I don't want to enter this place again. And then after that, I got out and now my feet walked faster than usual. I didn't tell them, but they naturally walked and they took me straight to the college canteen. And I got an ice cream for myself to celebrate the completion of the carpentry lab. I got my ice cream, and as the blob of the ice cream went down my throat, that is when I realized what sir had told me. He said, ultimately you have to do it. If not now, later. Why do you have to postpone it? So that's when I thought, if something had to be done, and if it had to be done by me, of course, only I had to do it. No one else would do it for me. So that was my 10-minute walk from the classroom to the carpentry lab and from the carpentry lab to the college canteen. Thank you very much.
Superb. Thank you so much, Mangalam, for that indeed incredible journey of 10 minutes walk to your carpentry lab. A 17-year-old's roller coaster ride, a fascinating ride to the lab, and through that, it was thoroughly entertaining, engaging as always. I had this big smile on my face from the start to the end of your story. And you took us through everything, through your expressions, words. It was deeply engaging. And thank you so much, Mangalam, once again for sharing this fascinating story with us. Thank you.
Absolutely my pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So moving on, friends, our next storyteller is Dr. Aarti Punjabi, who's joining us from Mumbai. She's a facilitator and trainer for communications. She helps individuals and brands to hone their communication skills by structuring their thoughts and articulating them to accomplish their desired goals. A faculty for leading business schools, she also works for BIRD, a project aimed at developing reading skills for 1 billion people in India. She is a passionate storyteller, a writer, and a podcaster who believes in the magic and healing power of stories. Today, she is going to share a personal story that is titled, Home is Where the Heart Is. Friends, help me welcome Dr. Aarti with a round of applause. Over to you, Aarti.
Thank you, Shanti. Thank you, everyone. Such amazing stories, and I think we will talk about them once I am done with my story, but wonderful experience. And thank you, Shanti, for having me. So I'm going to be sharing a story which I have titled Home is Where the Heart Is. So here I go. You know, whenever someone asks me that, where is your home? The first image that crops up in my mind is of my childhood home, the home that I grew up in then a sleepy language city of Lucknow. So this time when I went to Lucknow with my sister, we decided, first of all, let's go to all the popular spots of the city. And we started with a early morning, crisp morning walk, and we went to the Lohiya Park. As we walked about the neatly manicured garden with carefully laid out jogging and walking tracks, we peered at every face, trying our best to find a familiar face or a smile. Alas, there were none. We were in our hometown, but it was now strange, aloof, and cold. A disconcerting feeling washed over me, and I abruptly turned to my sister and I said, let's go to Lal Bagh, check out our old neighborhood. Our parents had moved out from that house nearly 3 decades ago, and in the first few years, whenever we visited Lucknow, we would go to the mohalla and visit some neighbors, until the pain of losing our childhood home and the gradual moving out of our old neighbors overcame the joy of going there. And soon our visits dried up. We had not gone there since a decade. So we decided, let's drive up to the mohalla. The cool breeze tingling our cheeks. We looked dreamily at all the old buildings as we entered that area. There, screamed my sister excitedly. See, Wilson. And I turned and I looked with rose-tinged eyes at that tiny shop, you know, which was sitting demurely dwarfed by 2 multi-storied buildings. We spent so many evenings in that shop, you know, going through the ballpoint pens, gel pen, colorful sketch pens, stationery paper. We would buy Christmas cards. We are not Christians, but I guess we went to a convent school, so we always bought Christmas cards for our friends. My heart raced with excitement as we reached the big iron gate to our mohalla. Our wise nephew who was driving us, he informed us that we'd be better off walking in there rather than attempting to drive in. It was a very cool summer morning. There was gentle chirping of the birds outside, so soothing. The melodious chanting of Ramayan, Mangal Bhavana Mangal Hari, from the nearby temple poured like nectar in our ears. I was suddenly back in late 1980s. The Panwala shop was right there at the entrance, and my eyes looked frantically for Chedi. Chedi? Who is Chedi? Oh, by then I had gently slipped into the past. Chedi was our rickshawala. No one really knew much about him except that every morning this lanky man would stand outside my mohalla in Lal Bagh, waiting for his sawaris. You see, he had the sole responsibility of ferrying all the girls in the mohalla to their respective schools, colleges, library. You could call him the mohalla chauffeur for the girls. He had been picking and dropping me for nearly 10 years. And so, it was obvious that my first day of college, if I have to go and pick up my admission form, I have to go in Chedi's rickshaw. As I was getting ready and I pinned my pink dupatta securely on my shoulders, you see, if I didn't do that, the roadside Romeos would not hesitate to pull it. So I just called out, "Mummy, I'm going." "Chedi aaya?" my mother asked. "Nahi, not yet. I'm getting late. I'll take another rickshaw." "Khabardar, you have to wait for him. You will only go with Chedi." I was so furious. Why? Do you know how much he troubles me? Do you know last evening when I went to Farah's house, he told me, "Aadhe ghante mein aana, humko Geetu ko lene jana hai." And after half an hour, he rang the bell and he told Kusloon aunties come to pick me. And Kusloon auntie sent me off packing. Who does he think he is? I am not going with him. Okay, no problem. Then you're not going. I glared at my monster mom with pure hatred. Why did she love Chedi so much? And even that Mrs. Snooty, Mrs. Ghosh, she liked him so much that she gave him some fried fish wrapped in a newspaper. And he promptly fed it to the mohalla cat. And when I caught him, he smiled sheepishly. "Arey hum Brahman hai, baby." "I'm a Brahman," that's what he claimed. "Acha, Brahman ho, और बीड़ी और तंबाकू का क्या? और वो सब गाली? So what about the betel nut and the tobacco and the abuses? अरे गाली तो हम लफंगे लौंडों को देते हैं ना बेबी, he declared. Well, that was true. You see, once a few boys had dutifully started waiting at the corner of my road, and they would cycle along with Chedi's rickshaw all the way to my college. One day, one of them whistled. Chedi got down from his rickshaw and threw his torn shoe at the boy. The boys scooted and were not seen for a very long time. In college, we even had to wear a sports uniform once a week. Yeah, even in college. A short red skirt with a gray blouse. So the first time I wore that, Chedi looked at me very disapprovingly. I glared back, ready to snap. But he just pulled the hood of the rickshaw, placed a small wooden bench in front of me, and cycled away. I wanted to retort, but I knew better. At least those lafange roadside Romeos would not harass me. And then onwards, every Wednesday, he would come to pick me. The hood of the rickshaw would be drawn up, and there would be a bench in front. I remember it was a cold December morning, and I had my English paper. It was nearly 7:45 a.m. and there was no sign of Chedi. And I started whining, "Mummy, how long can I wait? I will miss my paper." "Don't worry, beta, he will come." It was 7:55 and he had still not turned up. So my mother had to push my grumpy bhaiya to drop me to college. After the exam, I wanted to hang around the canteen, but I knew that the pest Chedi would complain to my mother, "Baby तो वहीं खड़ी रहती है, हमको और भी काम है." So I walked briskly with my friend Neeta, but we could not spot Chedi. How strange. He was not at his usual spot, or for that matter, anywhere around. I fretted and Neeta scowled. "How long do we wait for your Chedi? Let's take a rig." I reached home and threw a tantrum. "Mummy, the stupid Chedi did not come to pick me." "Really? That's so unusual, na beta. He hasn't turned up outside the mohalla also today." Your dad asked the panwala, the chai wala. Can you imagine? No one knows where Chedi lives. She nodded her head in disbelief. "Really, Mummy? But, Mummy, you know where he lives, don't you?" And she shook her head. "No, beta, even we don't know." Chedi did not come. Not that day, not next week, next month, or even next year. Some said that he had taken off to his village. Others swore that he was run over by a car. Yet others claimed that he now stood outside the Charbagh station. I looked out for him for a long, long time, peering into the face of every rickshawala, till life took over and slowly Chedi became a dim memory. Today, as I stood outside my mohalla, I was overwhelmed. If only I could see him once. My sister nudged me. Hey, should we go in? I was shaken out of my reverie. You see, once your mind slips into the past, it gets lost in the precious memories and refuses to see any dark spots that has obscured your life. And so I held on to the precious memories of sitting in Chedi's rickshaw and walked inside the mohalla. I whipped out my cell phone, just like we do every time nowadays, to take a video of my beloved home, and then stood rooted to the spot. My hands trembled a wee bit as I looked frantically for a home. Instead, there stood a cluster of newly constructed, ugly gray buildings, jostling each other, desperately trying to grab some sunlight, which had been devoured by a tall multi-story building looming right opposite them. Electric poles stood gingerly with tangled black wires swinging in the breeze. A lone crow sat there, cawing listlessly. Billboards of various sizes screamed for attention. SAIL, Best Coaching Institute, Tech Hub, Best Trading Company. Tears welled up my eyes. Our beautiful childhood home had been devoured by this commercial monster. Not a trace of it remained. Even the staircase leading to my first floor home was now replaced with granite stone and gleaming aluminium, or maybe it was steel rails on the side. We both sighed. You should have not come, I told my sister. She nodded. Yeah, not a journey worth taking. Let's go back. We walked back with heavy hearts and we got into the car. My nephew saw our solemn faces and he drove us quietly down to the corner chai shop. Well, a good dose of chai and one makhan can uplift a sagging spirit, and that's exactly what happened. We walked back in time again this time, cheered by the memories of friends and family who were an integral part of our childhood. We chatted excitedly about the eccentric Ala auntie, the crafty Ramu Chakkiwala, Shadow, the ferocious Doberman, the wily Ram Singh, the fruit wala, the chana bhatura, the matar wala outside. By the time we reached my mom's place, we were back to laughing and sharing tidbits of our past. I realized during this journey that the past cannot be recreated. Sometimes we go back in time and we want to relive our past. We look for buildings, houses, streets. We expect them to be there physically, just like we had left them before. But we fail to realize that we have moved on. We are no longer the same people. Life has moved on. I know my childhood home does not exist now. At least not physically. It's not tangible. But I also know that it is right there for me to revisit whenever I want to. All I have to do is close my eyes, sit quietly, and think about it. Or maybe even talk to my siblings and just travel and revel in the comfort of my home. I can still smell the faint fragrance of Pond's talcum that emanated from my mom's almirah. I can hear the mittu calling, "Hey Bablu," in my neighbor's house. I can see my dad sitting in the veranda, sipping tea as the announcer reads out Samachar on Vivid Bharati. I can feel the warmth of my home while I sit in the tiny kitchen, watching my mother make guru roti for us. Yes, my home lives on in my memory, in our collective memory. It will and it always will. Thank you. Home is where the heart is.
Wow. Wow. Aarti, thank you so much for sharing that enchanting tale of nostalgia, childhood, memories, and of course, sweet, endearing memories of Chedi. I felt that I was living through those moments when you were describing that, you described things so vividly that I felt that it was happening right in front of my eyes. And of course, I loved the way you completed the circle, saying that how we like things to remain the same. At the same time, we move on. When we are elsewhere, we want the things of our past to be there exactly the way it was. So that I love that take, and indeed an incredible journey. Aarti, thank you so much for sharing this tale with us at our forum. We are honored. So right from, the first story by Shilpa to Sugunakar to Mankalam to Aarti, four incredible tales of incredible journeys. And I thank each one of you from the bottom of my heart for sharing our space and sharing the pieces of your life, your personal stories with us. Thank you all so much. And I would love to open the forum for discussion, to listen to our audience, our dear listeners. Please unmute yourself, say your name and share your thoughts.